The crimson light of the blood moon cast an eerie glow across the asteroid field, where the USS Defiance had been hiding for 3 long months. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the rare celestial event unfold through the main view screen. The moon's surface looked like it was bleeding as Earth's shadow passed over it during the eclipse. This phenomenon only happened once every 7 years across the Terran colonial sector, and tonight, it would reach its peak intensity. Jake had been waiting for this moment, since they first discovered the ancient alien artifacts on the dead world of Kepler 442c. The technology they found there was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. The crystalline cores could generate power levels that made their best fusion reactors look like candles. The energy matrices could bend space and time in ways that defied every law of physics they thought they knew. Most importantly, the weapon systems could punch through any known shield technology like it was made of paper. The problem was that the Galactic Council had banned humans from possessing such advanced technology. They claimed it was too dangerous for a young and aggressive species like humanity to handle. The truth was that the Council feared what humans might do with weapons that could challenge their 1,000-year dominance over the galaxy. So Jake and his crew had been forced to hide in this remote asteroid field, while they secretly installed the forbidden technology into their experimental warship. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez turned from her tactical station with excitement in her eyes. She had been monitoring sensor readings all evening, waiting for something unusual to happen during the blood moon event. The young woman had dark hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail and sharp green eyes that missed nothing on her displays. She was the best tactical officer in the fleet even though she was only 28 years old. Captain, I'm detecting strange energy signatures coming from the moon's surface, Amy reported with barely contained enthusiasm. The readings are unlike anything in our database, but they match theoretical projections for temporal displacement fields. She paused to double-check her instruments before continuing. Sir, these signatures are identical to reports from the legendary Phantom Fleet. Jake felt his pulse quicken at those words. Every spacer in the colonial navy had heard stories about the Phantom Fleet, ghost ships that supposedly appeared during blood moon events across various star systems. Most officers dismissed the tales as superstition or sensor ghosts caused by the unusual gravitational effects during eclipses. But Amy Rodriguez was not the type to chase shadows on her screens. Chief Engineer Ben Collins looked up from his engineering station, where he had been monitoring the integration of their new alien technology. The big man had grease stains on his uniform and tired eyes from working 18-hour shifts for weeks. His thick hands moved across holographic displays as he balanced power flows that could vaporize the ship if he made one mistake. The forbidden technology required constant adjustments to prevent catastrophic overloads. Captain, the alien power cores are resonating with whatever Amy is detecting, Ben said in his deep, gravelly voice. The crystalline matrices are showing energy patterns I've never seen before. It's like they're trying to sync up with some external signal. He frowned at his readings and shook his head. This can't be a coincidence, boss. The artifacts we found were specifically designed to interact with whatever is out there. Medical Officer Lisa Parker moved away from her station near the back of the bridge where she had been reviewing crew medical reports. The blonde doctor was in her early 30s with kind blue eyes and steady hands that had saved dozens of lives during their covert mission. She had been monitoring the crew for any side effects from exposure to the alien technology, but so far, everyone seemed healthy. Captain, I should mention that several crew members have reported unusual dreams over the past few nights, Lisa said in her calm professional tone. They describe visions of ancient battles and ships fighting in the void between stars. I initially attributed this to stress from our situation, but given what Amy is detecting, perhaps these dreams are something more significant. Communications. Specialist Tony Harris spun around in his chair, with an alarmed expression on his young face. The 25-year-old had brown hair and nervous energy that made him excellent at monitoring multiple communication channels simultaneously. His fingers flew over his console as he processed incoming signals from across the star system. Captain, we have a big problem, Tony announced with tension in his voice. I'm picking up massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple heavy cruisers and at least one dreadnought-class vessel dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The energy signatures match Galactic Council enforcement fleet configurations. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized their hiding place had been compromised. The Council's enforcement fleets were legendary for their firepower and ruthless efficiency. A single heavy cruiser could destroy most human ships without breaking a sweat. A full enforcement fleet could level entire planets if they chose to do so. "How long until they reach our position?" Jake asked while his mind raced through possible escape routes. "At current speed, approximately 4 hours, Captain," Tony replied after checking his calculations. "But sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies demanding our immediate surrender. They know exactly where we are and what we've been doing here." Amy pulled up tactical displays showing the incoming fleet's formation. The ships moved with practiced precision that spoke of countless battles across the galaxy. Their weapons were already powered up and shields raised for combat. This was not a diplomatic mission but a military operation designed to capture or destroy the USS Defiance. "Captain, the lead ship is the Voidhammer," Amy said with grim recognition. "That's Admiral Zexthera's flagship. She's the Council's most ruthless enforcer and she's never failed to complete a mission." Amy's fingers moved across her controls as she analyzed the enemy fleet composition. "They have enough firepower to reduce this entire asteroid field to cosmic dust." Jake stared at the tactical display showing red icons representing the approaching Council fleet. Each ship was larger and more powerful than his experimental vessel. The Defiance was fast and carried the forbidden alien technology, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Even with their advanced weapons, they could not hope to win a direct confrontation against such overwhelming force. But something about the timing bothered him. The Council fleet had arrived precisely during the Blood Moon event, when the mysterious energy signatures were appearing. That could not be a coincidence. Perhaps the Council was not just hunting them, but was also interested in whatever phenomenon was occurring during the eclipse. "Amy, continue monitoring those energy signatures from the moon," Jake ordered as he settled into his command chair. "Ben, keep those alien cores stable no matter what happens. Lisa, monitor the crew for any changes in their condition. Tony, see if you can intercept any Council communications about their real mission objectives." The Blood Moon continued its slow dance across the star system, while two forces converged. On the hidden asteroid field where the USS Defiance waited, neither the human crew nor the approaching alien fleet knew that they were about to encounter something far more dangerous than each other, something that had been waiting 300 years for this exact moment to return. The USS Defiance moved slowly through the asteroid field toward the source of the mysterious energy signatures. Captain Jake Morrison kept his eyes fixed on the main view screen as the Blood Moon grew larger before them. The crimson light seemed to pulse with an otherworldly rhythm that made the hair on his arms stand up. Something was definitely out there waiting for them in the shadows between the floating rocks. Amy Rodriguez worked frantically at her tactical station as new readings flooded her sensors. The energy signatures were getting stronger with each passing minute, and they were definitely artificial in origin. No natural phenomenon could generate such precise geometric patterns in subspace. Her fingers flew across the controls as she tried to isolate the source of the transmissions. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple large objects materializing near the moon's surface," Amy announced with excitement and fear mixed in her voice. "The energy patterns suggest they're ships, but they're not showing up on visual sensors yet. It's like they're phasing in and out of normal spacetime." Ben Collins monitored the alien technology cores from his engineering station as they continued to resonate with the external signals. The crystalline matrices were glowing brighter than he had ever seen them before, and the power output was climbing steadily. He had to constantly adjust the containment fields to prevent an overload that could destroy the ship. "Captain, the alien cores are syncing up with whatever is out there," Ben reported with concern in his deep voice. "The resonance frequency is creating harmonics throughout our entire power grid. I've never seen the technology respond like this to anything before." He paused to check his readings again. It's almost like the cores recognize these signals and want to connect with their source. Lisa Parker moved between crew stations checking on everyone's condition as the strange effects intensified. Several officers were reporting mild headaches and disorientation as they got closer to the energy source. The dreams about ancient battles were becoming more vivid, and some crew members claimed they could hear voices speaking in an unknown language. "Captain, the psychological effects are spreading throughout the crew," Lisa reported while scanning a junior officer with her medical tricorder. "Heart rates are elevated and brain activity shows unusual patterns in the temporal lobe region. Whatever is generating those energy signatures is having a direct effect on human neural pathways." Tony Harris suddenly straightened up at his communication station as his equipment detected something unprecedented. His screens filled with data streams that defied every protocol he had learned at the academy. The signals were definitely from human technology, but they were using encryption methods that would not be invented for another 100 years. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission," Tony announced with disbelief clear in his young voice. "The signal is definitely coming from the energy signatures near the moon, but the technology is impossibly advanced. It's human in origin but uses quantum communication protocols we don't even have theories for yet." Jake felt his pulse race as the implications hit him. Human ships with impossible technology appearing during the Blood Moon event, while their alien artifacts resonated with the mysterious signals. This was no coincidence, but part of something much larger than he had imagined. "Put the transmission through, Tony," Jake ordered as he gripped the arms of his command chair. The main view screen flickered and filled with static before resolving into the image of a woman in an unfamiliar naval uniform. She appeared to be in her 50s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that held the weight of countless battles. Behind her, Jake could see a bridge that looked both ancient and incredibly advanced at the same time. "This is Admiral Kate Thompson of the Terra Colonial Expeditionary Fleet," the woman said in a voice that carried absolute authority. "I am speaking to you from the flagship USS Horizon, which departed Earth exactly 300 years ago on a deep space exploration mission. We have been trapped in a temporal displacement field since our first encounter with the Blood Moon phenomenon." Jake stared at the screen in shock as he processed what he was hearing. The Terra Colonial Expeditionary Fleet was legendary in human history. 50 ships and 30,000 colonists had departed Earth in the early days of human space exploration, and had simply vanished without a trace. Most historians assumed they had been destroyed or lost in deep space. "Admiral Thompson, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance," Jake replied while trying to keep his voice steady. "How is it possible that you've been trapped for 300 years? Our sensors show your ships materializing now during this Blood Moon event." Admiral Thompson's expression grew grim as she explained their situation. "Captain, our ships were experimenting with prototype faster-than-light drives when we encountered the Blood Moon phenomenon in this star system 3 centuries ago. The gravitational effects caused our experimental engines to malfunction and created a temporal bubble around our entire fleet." The view screen split to show images of dozens of human ships that looked both familiar and alien. They had the basic design philosophy of human engineering, but incorporated technology that was far beyond anything the current colonial navy possessed. These were the ships of humanity's lost children, who had been forced to evolve in isolation. For 300 years we have been locked in combat with an extra-dimensional threat that feeds on the life force of entire star systems. Admiral Thompson continued with exhaustion in her voice. "They call themselves the Shadow Collective, and they use the Blood Moon events as a gateway between dimensions. We have been the only thing standing between them and the populated worlds of human space." Amy checked her sensors again and detected more ships materializing around the moon. The fleet was massive with vessel types she had never seen before. Some ships were clearly designed for pure combat, while others looked like mobile research stations or manufacturing facilities. This was not just a military force, but an entire civilization that had been cut off from the rest of humanity. "Admiral, our ship carries advanced alien technology that might be able to help break your temporal displacement," Jake offered while Ben nodded his agreement from the engineering station. "Captain, I'm afraid the situation is more complicated than that," Admiral Thompson replied with worry in her eyes. "The temporal barrier is weakening on its own due to gravitational stress from this Blood Moon event. Within hours it will collapse completely and release both our fleet and the Shadow Collective into normal space-time." Tony Harris interrupted with urgent news from his communication station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching our position. The Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet will be here in less than 2 hours." Admiral Thompson's expression hardened as she processed this information. "Captain, the Council will view our appearance as a human military buildup using forbidden technology. They will attack both our fleets without asking questions first. We need to coordinate our defenses because the Shadow Collective will use the chaos to launch their invasion of this dimension." Jake realized they were facing a 3-way conflict that could determine the fate of humanity and possibly the entire galaxy. The USS Defiance was caught between a Council enforcement fleet that wanted to destroy them, a lost human fleet with impossible technology, and extra-dimensional entities that threatened all life in normal space. Admiral Thompson, we need to work together if we're going to survive what's coming, Jake said with determination in his voice. My crew has experience with both the alien technology and Council military tactics. Tell us everything we need to know about fighting the Shadow Collective. The Blood Moon continued its crimson dance above them as three forces prepared for a battle that would echo across the stars. The Galactic Council enforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry hornets. Admiral Zexthara stood on the bridge of her massive dreadnought Void Hammer, watching the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. The alien commander was tall and thin with pale blue skin, and 4 arms that moved with predatory grace. Her species had ruled the Council's military forces for over 800 years, and they did not tolerate defiance from younger races. Deploy the fleet in standard enforcement formation, Admiral Zexthara commanded in her harsh metallic voice. Surround the asteroid field and prepare to broadcast surrender demands to the human vessel. If they refuse, we will demonstrate why the Council banned them from possessing advanced weapons. Technology. The Council ships moved with practiced precision as they took positions around the hiding place of the USS Defiance. Each vessel was twice the size of the human ship and carried weapons that could crack planets. The fleet formation was designed to prevent any possible escape while maximizing their overwhelming firepower advantage. Captain Jake Morrison watched the enemy ships surround his position while Admiral Thompson's Phantom fleet continued, materializing near the Blood Moon. The temporal displacement was weakening rapidly, and more human ships appeared every few minutes. Soon there would be over 50 vessels from the lost expedition visible to Council sensors. Captain, the Council fleet is hailing us on all frequencies, Tony Harris reported from his communication station. Admiral Zexthara is demanding our immediate surrender and the transfer of all alien technology. She's threatening to destroy the entire asteroid field if we don't comply within 1 hour. Jake knew they were trapped between impossible choices. Surrendering would mean the end of humanity's hopes for advanced technology, and probably exile from the galactic community. Fighting back would prove the Council's claims about human aggression, and give them justification for even harsher restrictions. But doing nothing would doom Admiral Thompson's fleet and allow the Shadow Collective to invade normal. Space. Amy Rodriguez monitored both the Council fleet and the materializing Phantom ships while trying to calculate their tactical options. The numbers were not encouraging, even with the lost human fleet joining them. The Council ships had superior weapons and shields while the Phantom fleet was weakened from 3 centuries of constant warfare. Captain, the Council formation is designed to maximize crossfire while minimizing their own casualties, Amy reported with professional calm despite their desperate situation. They're treating this as a standard enforcement action against a single rebellious ship. They don't realize what they're really dealing with. Ben Collins worked frantically to keep the alien technology cores stable as the temporal effects intensified around them. The crystalline matrices were resonating so strongly now that they threatened to overload the ship's entire power grid. He had to constantly adjust containment fields while monitoring dozens of critical systems. Captain, the alien cores are becoming unstable due to the temporal interference, Ben announced with sweat beading on his forehead. The resonance frequencies are creating feedback loops throughout our power systems. If this continues much longer, we'll face a complete core breach that could vaporize everything within 100 kilometers. Lisa Parker moved through the bridge, checking on crew members as the psychological effects from the temporal displacement grew stronger. Several officers were reporting intense headaches and disorientation, while others claimed they could see ghostly images of ancient battles overlaying their vision. Captain, the crew is showing signs of temporal displacement syndrome, Lisa reported while scanning Jake with her medical equipment. Brain activity is spiking in regions associated with memory and time perception. We're all being affected by whatever forces holding Admiral Thompson's fleet in that temporal bubble. Admiral Zexthara opened communications with the USS Defiance while her weapons officers prepared to demonstrate Council firepower. The alien commander appeared on the main view screen with her forearms crossed in a gesture of absolute authority. Behind her, the bridge of the Void Hammer was filled with exotic technology that dwarfed anything humanity possessed. Captain Morrison, you have violated the most fundamental laws of the Galactic Council by developing forbidden weapons technology Admiral Zexathara declared in her cold mechanical voice. Your species has proven once again that humans are too aggressive and unpredictable to be trusted with advanced capabilities. Jake stood up from his command chair and faced the alien admiral with as much dignity as he could manage. He knew that his next words could determine the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy. The wrong response could trigger a war that would destroy human civilization. Admiral Zexathara, we discovered this technology on an abandoned world and integrated it purely for defensive purposes, Jake replied while choosing his words carefully. Humanity has never used these capabilities against council members or civilian populations. We pose no threat to galactic peace. The alien admiral's expression showed complete disbelief at Jake's claims. Her species had been dealing with younger races for millennia, and they had learned to recognize the signs of military buildup and aggressive expansion. To her, the human ship represented everything dangerous about allowing primitive species access to advanced technology. Your protestations are meaningless, Captain, Admiral Zexathara responded with dismissive contempt. This incident will be used as justification to exile humanity from the galactic community permanently. Your species will be restricted to your home solar system and forbidden from developing any technology beyond basic fusion power. Tony. Harris suddenly detected new transmissions flooding the communication channels as Admiral Thompson's fleet became fully visible to Council sensors. The Phantom ships were broadcasting on frequencies that matched historical human naval protocols but used encryption methods far beyond current capabilities. Captain, the Council fleet is detecting Admiral Thompson's ships, Tony announced with growing alarm in his voice. Their tactical computers are showing massive confusion as they try to identify the new contacts. The Phantom fleet's technology signatures don't match anything in Council databases, Admiral. Zexathara turned away from her conversation with Jake as her own sensors detected the materializing human fleet. The alien commander had expected to deal with a single rebellious vessel, but now faced dozens of ships with impossible technology. Her tactical officers were reporting energy readings that defied known physics. How many human ships are hiding in this system? Admiral Zexathara demanded with fury building in her voice. This is obviously a coordinated military buildup designed to challenge Council authority. You have been planning this deception for years. Jake realized that the Council would never believe the truth about Admiral Thompson's fleet. The appearance of dozens of advanced human ships during a forbidden technology crisis would be seen as proof of humanity's aggressive intentions. The situation was spiraling toward a conflict that could destroy everything. Admiral, the temporal displacement is collapsing faster than predicted. Admiral Thompson's voice came through the communication channel with urgent warning. The Shadow Collective is already beginning to leak through the weakening barrier. We have perhaps 30 minutes before they launch a full invasion of this dimension. Admiral Zexathara heard Admiral Thompson's transmission, and her expression changed from anger to confusion. The Council had no records of any human officer by that name, and the technology being used for the communication was beyond anything her species possessed. Something was happening that went far beyond a simple human rebellion. All Council ships prepare for immediate attack. Admiral Zexathara commanded as she decided to resolve the situation with overwhelming force. Target the human vessels and prepare to demonstrate the price of defying galactic law. We will not allow this military buildup to threaten the peace we have maintained for centuries. The Blood Moon reached its peak intensity as three fleets prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds across the galaxy. The first signs of the Shadow Collective's arrival came as tears in the fabric of space itself. Dark wounds opened near the Blood Moon's surface, and something that should not exist began pouring through into normal reality. The entities that emerged defied every law of physics as they twisted and writhed through dimensions that human minds could barely comprehend. Captain Jake Morrison watched in horror as the nightmare creatures materialized on his view screen. They looked like living shadows with too many angles and surfaces that seemed to fold in on themselves. The beings moved through space without ships or technology, but somehow traveled faster than anything the Council or humans had ever built. Captain, the Shadow Collective is breaking through the temporal barrier. Admiral Thompson's voice came through the communication channel with 3 centuries of exhaustion and determination. My fleet has been fighting these things since before your grandparents were born. They feed on life force and they will not stop until every living thing in this galaxy is consumed. The USS Defiance shuddered as the first shadow entity passed close to their position. The creature was larger than most starships, and its presence seemed to drain energy from everything around it. Lights dimmed throughout the ship, and several crew members collapsed at their stations as the thing's hunger touched their minds. Amy Rodriguez struggled to maintain focus at her tactical station as the shadow creature's influence washed over the bridge. Her training told her to target the entity with their weapons, but her instruments could barely detect it. The thing existed partially in normal space, and partially in dimensions that sensors were not designed to measure. "Captain, I can't get a weapons lock on these things," Amy reported while fighting off waves of despair that seemed to emanate from the shadow entities. "They exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and our targeting computers can't compensate for their reality warping abilities." Ben Collins watched in amazement as the alien technology cores suddenly blazed with brilliant light. The crystalline matrices were responding to the Shadow Collective's presence by generating power levels that should have been impossible. The forbidden technology seemed to recognize these entities as ancient enemies and was preparing for war. "Captain, the alien cores are resonating with defensive frequencies," Ben announced with excitement breaking through his fear. The technology was specifically designed to fight these shadow creatures. "The power output is climbing beyond anything I've seen before, but the containment fields are holding steady." Lisa Parker moved between fallen crew members as the shadow entity's psychic assault intensified. The creatures attacked minds as well, as bodies and several officers were showing signs of complete psychological breakdown. She administered emergency medications while trying to understand how the entities were affecting human neural chemistry. "Captain, the shadow creatures are draining life force directly from the crew," Lisa reported while checking vital signs on her medical scanner. "Heart rates are dropping and brain activity is showing patterns consistent with rapid aging. These things are literally feeding on our life energy." Admiral Zexithera stood on the bridge of the Void Hammer watching her sensors fill with impossible readings. The Council's most advanced detection equipment could barely track the shadow entities, and her weapons officers were reporting that standard energy weapons had no effect on the creatures. "All ships open fire on the dimensional anomalies," Admiral Zexithera commanded with confusion and fear creeping into her normally confident voice. "Use maximum firepower and attempt to drive these entities back through the spatial tiers." The Council fleet unleashed devastating barrages against the Shadow Collective, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the creatures like they were firing at ghosts. Plasma cannons and particle beams that could vaporize planets had no effect on beings that existed partially outside normal reality. Tony Harris intercepted communications between Council ships as their crews struggled to understand what they were facing. The alien officers were reporting system failures and crew casualties as the shadow entities spread throughout the star system. Several smaller Council vessels had gone completely dark as their crews fell victim to the creatures' life-draining abilities. "Captain, the Council fleet is in chaos," Tony announced while monitoring multiple distress signals. "Their weapons are useless against these things, and they're losing ships to whatever the shadow creatures are doing to them. Admiral Zexithera is calling for immediate retreat." Admiral Thompson's Phantom fleet emerged fully from the temporal displacement and immediately engaged the Shadow Collective with weapons that actually worked against the dimensional entities. Their ships fired beams of pure crystalline energy that could damage creatures existing in multiple realities simultaneously. "All human vessels coordinate your attacks with our targeting data," Admiral Thompson broadcast to both the USS Defiance and the Council fleet. "We have 300 years of experience fighting these creatures. Your alien technology cores contain the same defensive frequencies we've been using to hold them back." Jake watched as the Phantom fleet's advanced ships tore into the Shadow Collective with weapons that bent space and time around their targets. The lost human expedition had been forced to develop technology far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed just to survive their eternal war against the dimensional invaders. "Amy, coordinate our weapons with Admiral Thompson's targeting data," Jake ordered while gripping his command chair as another shadow entity passed near their ship. "Ben, channel everything the alien cores can give us into our weapons systems. We're going to show these things what humanity can do when we're properly motivated." The USS Defiance opened fire with weapons powered by forbidden alien technology and guided by 3 centuries of hard-won combat experience. Their energy beams struck the shadow creatures and actually caused visible damage as the entities writhed and screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. Admiral Zexithera watched in shock as the human ships demonstrated capabilities that surpassed anything the Council possessed. The forbidden technology that she had come to confiscate was the only thing standing between her fleet and complete annihilation by creatures that defied everything she thought she knew about reality. All Council ships cease fire on human vessels and coordinate with their tactical data, Admiral Zexathera commanded with the bitter taste of necessity. Focus all weapons on the dimensional entities using the frequency patterns the humans are providing. The three fleets found themselves fighting side by side against an enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. Council ships that had come to destroy the USS Defiance now depended on human technology and expertise to survive the nightmare that was pouring through the tiers in space. Ben Collins worked frantically to channel more power to their weapons as the shadow entities launched coordinated attacks against all three fleets. The alien cores were operating at maximum capacity and generating energy levels that made their ship glow like a small star against the darkness of space. "Captain, the cores are reaching critical resonance," Ben reported, while sweat poured down his face from the effort of controlling such massive power flows. "We can maintain this output for maybe another hour before the containment fields collapse. After that, we'll face a core breach that could take out half the system." Jake realized they were fighting a battle they could not win through conventional means. The Shadow Collective had unlimited numbers while the human and Council fleets were already taking heavy casualties. They needed something more than weapons to defeat an enemy that existed beyond the normal laws of physics. "Admiral Thompson, is there a way to close the dimensional tiers and send these things back where they came from?" Jake asked while watching more shadow entities pour through the growing rifts in space. "There is one possibility, Captain," Admiral Thompson replied with grim determination. "We can use the Blood Moon's gravitational field as a focusing lens for our combined alien technology. The process would create a massive space-time rift that could seal the dimensional barriers permanently." The Blood Moon hung above them like a crimson eye watching the desperate battle unfold as three species fought together for the first time in galactic history against an enemy that threatened to devour everything they held dear. The Blood Moon reached its moment of maximum eclipse as Captain Jake Morrison prepared to execute the most dangerous plan in human history. Every ship in the combined fleet would need to link their power systems together and channel their energy through the gravitational lens of the Crimson Moon. The process would create a space-time weapon capable of sealing the dimensional rifts, but it would leave them completely vulnerable to attack. Admiral Kate Thompson coordinated the power-linking sequence from her flagship, while shadow entities swarmed around the human and Council vessels like hungry wolves. Her crew had spent 300 years perfecting techniques for fighting these nightmare creatures, but they had never attempted anything as ambitious as permanently closing dimensional barriers. "All ships prepare for synchronized power transfer," Admiral Thompson broadcast to the combined fleet. "We will have approximately 10 minutes to complete the gravitational focusing process before the alien technology cores reach critical overload. If we fail, the Shadow Collective will have permanent access to our dimension." Amy Rodriguez worked frantically at her tactical station coordinating defensive fire patterns, while the fleet prepared for the power link. The shadow entities seemed to sense what the humans were planning, and their attacks became more desperate and coordinated. Massive creatures the size of space stations emerged from the dimensional tiers and headed directly for the most important ships. "Captain, the Shadow Collective is sending their largest entities against us," Amy reported while targeting the approaching nightmares with everything they had. "They know we're planning something that could stop their invasion permanently. These things are throwing everything they have at our position." Ben Collins monitored the alien technology cores as they prepared to channel impossible amounts of energy through the Blood Moon's gravitational field. The crystalline matrices were glowing so brightly they hurt to look at, and the power readings were climbing beyond anything he had ever imagined possible. "Captain, the cores are approaching maximum resonance frequency," Ben announced while sweat poured down his face from the intense heat generated by the alien technology. "Once we begin the power transfer, there will be no stopping the process. We either succeed in sealing the dimensional rifts or we face a core breach that will vaporize everything." Within 1,000 kilometers, Lisa Parker moved through the ship, treating crew members who had been affected by the shadow entity's psychic attacks. The creature's influence was growing stronger as more of them poured through the dimensional tiers, and several officers were showing signs of complete mental breakdown from exposure to their reality warping presence. Captain, the psychological effects are intensifying throughout the fleet. Lisa reported while administering emergency medications to a young ensign who was screaming about seeing impossible geometries. The shadow creatures are attacking our minds as well as our ships. Some crew members may not survive the mental strain of what we're about to attempt, Admiral. Sexithera watched from the bridge of the void, Hammer as her proud enforcement. Fleet fought alongside the human vessels they had come to destroy. The irony was not lost on her that the Council's greatest enemies had become their only hope for survival against a threat that made their previous conflicts seem insignificant. All Council ships link power systems with human vessel coordinates. Admiral Sexithera commanded while her weapons officers continued firing at shadow entities that barely seemed to notice their attacks. Channel all available energy to the gravitational focusing array. The survival of every species in the galaxy depends on the success of this operation. Tony Harris coordinated communications between all three fleets as they prepared for the most complex military operation in galactic history. Ships that had been enemies minutes before were now working together with precision that would have been impossible without the desperate circumstances they faced. Captain, all vessels report ready for power transfer. Tony announced while monitoring communication channels filled with reports from dozens of ships. The Council fleet is providing 60% of our total energy output, while Admiral Thompson's ships are contributing their advanced focusing technology. The USS Defiance moved into position at the center of the formation as the focal point for the massive energy transfer. Jake felt the weight of responsibility as he realized that his ship would be channeling enough power to light up entire star systems. One mistake could destroy not just their fleet but potentially damage the fabric of space-time itself. All ships begin power transfer on my mark, Jake announced to the combined fleet while gripping his command chair as the ship began to vibrate from the enormous energy flows. Remember that we're not just fighting for our own survival but for every living thing in this galaxy. The power link activated, and energy flowed between ships in streams of our brilliant light that turned the asteroid field into a constellation of artificial stars. The USS Defiance became the center of a web of pure energy that connected human ingenuity with alien technology and 3 centuries of hard-won experience. Ben Collins watched in amazement as the alien cores channeled power levels that should have been theoretically impossible. The crystalline matrices were resonating at frequencies that created harmonics throughout space-time itself, and the blood moon began to glow with an inner fire as gravitational forces focused the combined energy of 3 fleets. Captain, the gravitational lens is forming successfully, Ben reported with excitement breaking through his exhaustion. The blood moon is focusing our energy output into a coherent space-time disruption field. We're actually tearing holes in reality itself. The Shadow Collective seemed to realize what was happening and launched their most desperate attack yet. Creatures the size of small moons emerged from the dimensional tiers and threw themselves against the linked fleet with suicidal fury. Their reality warping abilities created chaos among the ship formations as space itself began to twist and bend around them. Admiral Thompson's flagship, USS Horizon, took the brunt of the shadow entity's final assault as massive creatures focused their attacks on the most advanced human vessel. The ship's shields held for precious seconds before the accumulated damage from 3 centuries of warfare finally took its toll. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson, came her final transmission as her flagship's hull began to crack under the impossible strain. I'm overloading our forbidden technology core to provide the final energy surge needed to complete the space-time rift. It has been an honor fighting alongside the children of Earth after all these years. The USS Horizon exploded in a flash of pure crystalline energy that lit up the entire star system. The explosion channeled 300 years of accumulated alien technology into the gravitational lens and created a space-time disruption that tore reality apart at the quantum level. The dimensional tiers began to collapse as the massive rift weapon reached critical resonance. Shadow entities were pulled screaming back into their own dimension as the barriers between realities snapped shut with finality that echoed across multiple planes of existence. Admiral Sexithera watched in stunned silence as the human vessels accomplished something that the Council's greatest scientists had deemed impossible. The forbidden alien technology that she had come to confiscate had just saved every living thing in the galaxy from a threat that her species had never even imagined. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for our actions. Admiral Zexathara announced with humility that her species had not shown in 8 centuries. Your people have proven today that humanity deserves not just membership in the galactic community, but leadership in defending it against threats we cannot face alone. Jake stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the last shadow entities disappear as the dimensional barriers sealed permanently. The blood moon was returning to its normal silver color as the eclipse ended and the crisis passed. Around them, the surviving ships of Admiral Thompson's fleet prepared to integrate with the modern human navy after 3 centuries of isolation. Admiral Zexthera Humanity accepts the Council's apology and looks forward to working together as equal partners, Jake replied while feeling the weight of history settling on his shoulders. We have learned today that the galaxy faces threats that require all species to work together regardless of our past differences. The Phantom Fleet began the long journey back to Earth, carrying with them technologies and experiences that would transform human civilization. The forbidden alien technology was no longer forbidden but recognized as humanity's contribution to galactic defense against threats that lurked beyond the boundaries of normal space. The USS Defiance led the combined fleet home as the blood moon faded into memory, and a new era of cooperation began among the stars.